Welcome to Magic Hour. I'm your host, Paul Chappell, and today we take a look at Black Widow on Disney Plus Premium. You can get it for like $30, or you can see it in theaters. I saw it at home, and it's one of those movies where you really like when you first see it, but then if you're like me, you're a critic, you think about it more and more, and you realize that it was kind of ridiculous. I mean, there was a lot of silly things that I just couldn't get out of my head, even though I really liked most of the characters in the movie. That was the great thing about this movie. It was very well cast. If you were to ask me who would you cast as Natasha Romanoff's family, these would be the right actors to fulfill those roles. Rachel Weisz as her mother, David Harbour as her father, and Florence Pugh as her younger sister. Perfectly cast. In fact, every role in this movie was almost perfectly cast except for Taskmaster. And you've probably already heard this. If you've heard anything about this movie, you've probably heard it, how they screwed up Taskmaster. And I have to agree with that. Everything good about this movie was undercut by some other decision that they made. For instance, this movie was very funny.
Why do you always do that thing?
Do what?
That thing you do when you're fighting.
This thing that you do when you whip your hair.
It's a fighting pose. You're a total poser.
I'm not a poser.
This was one of the funniest Marvel movies I've seen in a long time. And that's saying something, because if anything, Marvel movies are supposed to be fun, right? Well, in this case, the comedy kind of undercut the seriousness of the action scenes. Now, we already know that Scarlett Johansson's Natasha Romanoff is not going to die. She's just not. We know how she dies. She dies, spoilers if you haven't seen it, but she dies in Avengers Endgame. And this movie takes place between Captain America, Civil War, and the Avengers Infinity War. So we know she's not going to die already, but there's some other characters in the movie, like her sister and her mother and her father, who they all team up at the end, which is kind of weird because you find out very quickly that they're not actually related. We'll get to that in a second. But the fact that we don't know what was going to happen to these characters, they could have had more impact if they would have cut down a little bit on the comedy. Because what I mean by that is they're joking around even when they're in danger. And I didn't like that. Although, yes, I will admit it was very funny. Like, again, it just made the action a little bit less serious. And it felt like you should have been fearing for these characters throughout the whole movie. So that was a major problem with the action, which was mostly good. There were some great action scenes. I like some of the scenes with Taskmaster. You can tell he's emulating moves from Captain America and Hawkeye and Black Panther. And I like that. That's basically what that character does very well. Okay, so what didn't I ultimately like about the movie? What was my biggest complaint about the movie? I would have to say the plot. The plot didn't make a whole lot of sense. We start off the movie in Ohio, which is really Atlanta. David Harbour and Rachel Weisz are, living this suburban lifestyle with these two little girls who are playing around. And it's kind of weird, I have to say, about the casting of young Natasha. The girl they got to play her looked like a boy. For like 5 minutes, I was sure she was a little boy. And I was like, who is this little boy? I kept wondering. And then, until finally I heard her, somebody referred to her as Natasha. I said, oh, that's Natasha? So this family, they just, living their little suburban life until father gets home. The father, played by David Harbour, tells his wife, Rachel Weisz, that they only have an hour before the authorities get there. They got to run. And we find out in short order that they are Russian agents undercover in America. They are being chased by S.H.I.E.L.D. And they managed to make it to an airport, a little private airport, and they managed to get a plane up in the air, and they escape to Cuba. And at this point, the family gets disbanded because they meet up with their handlers, And the girls are sent to the Black Widow Assassin Academy, I guess. And we see what role their so-called parents have in this, because their parents were not their real parents. And their parents stole some technology from America that was essential to mind control technology, which is used in this Black Widow Assassin Academy. So the reason I'm mentioning this is the fact that their parents are basically evil people. And yet they have a team up later in the movie that kind of absolves them of all the wrong they've done, these little girls. So I had a problem with that, even though I love these characters. David Harbour is playing Red Gordon, who is a pretty decent character in the Marvel Universe. Okay, so the plot basically in this movie is that Natasha Romanoff is on a run from the U.S. government after the events of Captain America Civil War. And she goes to Norway to get away from that. And at the same time, her younger sister is in the Black Widow organization tracking down this scientist who has the MacGuffin of the movie. The MacGuffin is basically an antidote for the mind control that the Black Widows are under, because the Black Widows is an entire organization of killer assassins. They all wear the same outfit that we saw Natasha wear in all the other movies in the MCU. And they're just basically mercenaries. Her sister is still part of this organization. Now, they never really explain how Natasha herself got out of the organization, how she got out of if they were all under mind control, how did Natasha escape this mind control? They never really explained that. Okay, but whatever. We don't really need to know that part. Her sister, Florence Pugh's character, and I forget her name, Yelena. Yelena is tracking down this scientist with this antidote, and she kills this woman, but right before she kills her, one of the valves gets broken and she gets exposed to this antidote. She gets out of her whatever mind control state is, and she escapes from the Black Widow organization. She sends these vials of this antidote to Natasha in Norway by way of her fence. She has this fence that I'm talking about Natasha. Natasha has this fence that get her stuff like IDs and hair dye and all this other stuff. He gives Natasha this stuff from her safe house in Budapest because he says he has another customer. Customer, we find out later, is Yelena. For some reason, Florence sent her these vials of antidote, but doesn't tell her how important they are. And as a result of that, she's not prepared when Taskmaster, who works for the Black Widow organization, tracks her down and tries to kill her. And Natasha very quickly realizes that Taskmaster is after these vials of antidote and not her. And she escapes. She goes back to Budapest to this safe house, and she's reunited with this, her sister, who she tries to immediately kill. I really didn't understand why they were trying to kill each other. Natasha knows that her sister sent her these vials of antidote. Why doesn't she trust her? Then doesn't make a lot of sense. And vice versa. Why doesn't Yelena trust Natasha and immediately try to kill her with a kitchen knife? Anyway, you probably can guess the rest of the plot. The Black Widow organization tracks them down. The MacGuffin is these vials of antidote. So the Black Widow organization are sending these assassins to kill them, led by Taskmaster. And they decide, that is Natasha and Yelena, they decide that they're going to take down the Black Widow organization because they, pretty much ruined their lives, gave them both hysterectomies, which we learn about in, another Avengers movie. And they're going to take down this organization from within. So they decide that they're going to go recruit their former dad and former mom. I've put air quotes because they're not really their father and mother, but they break David Harbour out of prison. Why he's in prison, I don't remember. but he was put in prison by the head of this Black Widow organization, and he's kind of like a super soldier. He's Red Guardian from the comics. So he's basically the equivalent of Captain America, but on the Soviet side. So anyway, they break him out because they think he can lead them to the Black Widow organization because they don't know where it's located or where the central operating hub is. He tells them he doesn't know either, but he can lead them to somebody that does know, which is Rachel Weisz's character. She still works for the organization. They go to her and they all have this big family reunion. Everybody's loving on each other. And anyway, they go and take down the Black Widow organization. That's the basic plot of the movie. And yes, they did screw up Taskmaster because it is revealed, and spoilers right here. If you haven't seen the movie, just shut this review off now because I'm going to reveal several spoilers. But Taskmaster is the daughter of the head of the Black Widow organization. Yes, this guy is so evil, he used his own daughter in this organization. Turned her into an assassin after Natasha nearly killed her in an explosion. Which I had a big problem with because it made her a mute. She has no lines in the movie. And the thing about Taskmaster, he's not a huge character, but his profile has kind of been elevated by recent games like Spider-Man PS5. He made an appearance in the Avengers game that came out last year. His profile has been getting lifted in the games that have been coming out for Marvel. So I don't understand this decision to make him this woman mute because he's obviously a man in the games and he obviously can talk in the game. So I was kind of disappointed. Although I will say he was pretty badass. I keep saying him, but it was a woman. She's pretty badass because she uses signature moves from Captain America, Hawkeye, and Black Panther. She fires an arrow just like Hawkeye. In fact, she uses the same technology that he has. So some of Taskmaster was pretty good, but the moment they reveal what he looks like under the hood, it went downhill from there. So what do I rate this movie? Let's just go ahead and do this. I would have to say, after long thought, because as I've said, the humor kind of undercut the action, which, I could not take seriously. The whole family dynamic was very interesting, and the casting choices was almost perfect. But again, it was kind of unbelievable that they just suddenly forgave their parents for putting them in the Black Widow organization. And the fact that Rachel Weisz is even working for the organization when they run into her in this movie. So there was a lot of problems with the plotting and some of the characterizations, but it's really hard to give this movie a rating. I would say 2.5, 3 out of 5 at the very most. I mean, I'm being generous giving it a 3. I'd probably say 2.5 would probably be a more realistic score. There was the end credit scene with Florence Pugh's character going to Natasha's grave, and that character that Julia Louis-Dreyfus plays shows up and gives her a new assignment. I guess she's working for whatever organization that Valentina is working for, because we know Hydra is no longer in existence. But I kind of feel like she's working for Hydra because she tells Yelena that Clint Barton, Hawkeye, had something to do with Natasha's death and tasks her with killing Hawkeye. So somehow, I think that Hawkeye's going to have his own series, right? So that's probably going to play into whatever happens in that series that's coming out for Hawkeye. But I wasn't very excited about the end credit scene. I was kind of hoping that when she goes to Natasha's grave, that Natasha was actually going to walk out alive somehow. But I guess I don't really see how they would have done that anyway. It was just wishful thinking on my part. But I kind of hate to see Scarlett Johansson not return, because I just think she's just such a likable person in every way. She's one of those actresses, there's nothing negative. I've never felt a negative thing about her as an actress or in some of the movies I've seen her in. So I'm just disappointed that this is probably the last time we're going to see her in the MCU. But yeah, that's my review for Black Widow. Go see it. And I would like to thank my subscribers and encourage you. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. What are you waiting for? Give me a comment down below. Did I get this review right? Let me know in the comments. And give me a like if you enjoyed this review. And until next time, I will see you when I see you. Thanks for watching.